Heart to Heart podcast is sponsored by Balm in Bingham Photography. If you want timeless, natural, and authentic wedding photos, visit www.balminbingham.com. Welcome to Heart podcast. It's an exciting day today as I have my very own brother, Yves Laurent Sivuillu, joining me today here at Heart to Heart. How are you, brother?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good, good. Awesome. So, we know where we started.
Yeah.
You and I know where we started,
Yeah.
and it's been quite a journey. And I remember you working at Walmart as a cashier, and I see you now. I just want to say I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
So proud of you, brother. I see you now as a senior executive director at one of the most prominent tech companies in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And how has that journey been like?
Well, thank you. I'm equally proud of you. I think we've come a long way. I think we've done extremely well. We've had a lot of luck, a lot of blessings, a lot of support from our spouses, our families, our parents, all of the above. Small correction, I actually started as an overnight stalker.
Oh,
right?
yes.
So
yes.
I worked overnight, and then when it was time to go to college, I worked 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., went back to the house, took a quick shower, take an hour nap, and went to class. And then got out of class 4, maybe 5 p.m., took another nap, and went back and did it again. Did it for a number of years. My siblings were in high school, some of them in middle school, so I was probably, I was the oldest at the time.
Yeah.
And I was having a little income, but I needed to do something for myself, and I was going to school. It wasn't easy. It hasn't been easy. It's crazy to tell you. You go to college, you think when you graduate, everything is gonna be solved, but it's a whole new set of challenges, right?
Absolutely.
Starting a family, getting a job, trying to move up the ladder, all of the above. It was challenging. It hasn't been easy, but you do that with patience. Being graceful, and grateful also.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of humility, a lot of learning. You never stop learning.
That's right.
So that's what's carried me here. Like I said, I was an overnight stalker. Then I became a cashier. I went to school. I switched stores. I had a shot early on in my career into leadership because I was handpicked because of the skills that someone else saw. And then, I had an opportunity to taste leadership early on. Even if when I came into corporate America, I was an IC individual contributor, but I still kept those principles. And then eventually when my opportunity came, I stepped up.
So I know right now you talked about leadership, so you have a team that you oversee.
Yeah.
And what are some of the challenges that you faced as, being a African black man in leadership in one of the biggest tech companies? What are some of the challenges, unique challenges?
There's a lot of them, right? I have a team of about 50 plus employees in my org. And then combined with my partner, we have just a little under 100 employees that we're responsible for. There's a lot of different challenges. First of all, just being a leader, right? Any race, any age, it's not an easy job. It looks easy, but it takes a new muscle that most people don't have. Mm-hmm. You have to exercise the muscle in order to be successful. So the job in itself is already challenging as it is. But in addition, for me, when I step up, I'm an African man. I have an accent. I find myself in situations where I'm working into a boardroom, right? Nobody looks like me. Nobody sounds like me, right? How do you manage yourself? Mm-hmm. How do you handle yourself? How do you handle? I don't want to say handle, but manage the pressure. But most importantly, perceptions, because in communication, sometimes before you even open your mouth, people consciously or subconsciously have had an opinion of you already. It's not on purpose. It's just the way the human mind works, right? If I'm going to be in front of a board talking about an important topic, something I'm doing tomorrow morning, how do I present myself? How do I carry myself? How do I have that first contact? It starts with your eye contact, your handshake, and how you carry yourself. Right? You carry yourself in grace.
Stop right.
And you go from there.
Can you pause right there?
Sure.
You said that you thinking about all these things, is it because of, and you're in a leadership position, yeah, you have all that pressure, but you said you have to watch how you carry yourself.
Yeah.
Is it because of you're a black man, or it's just?
There's some of that, because you do have to. Not everybody's this way, by the way. Okay, but you're gonna have a portion of the population that's going to put you in a bucket because you look a certain way, you sound a certain way. Because certain people associate success, leadership, and intelligence to certain factors: the color of your skin, the tone of your accent. You even hear people talk about somebody that may have a country accent. They automatically assume, forget about being black, that this person is less intelligent. But that person may have had 3 or 4 more degrees, maybe a faster brain, but because I may be a Yankee and I hear somebody with an Alabama accent, I'm assuming I might be more intelligent. So those are just the dynamics that you have to be aware of.
Yeah.
Understand the situation. And the other challenge is going to be, when I walk into a room like that, these people don't know me. I don't know them. They met me for the first time. And I'm meeting them for the first time. I have no idea. If it's my team, the people I work with, I trust that we know each other. But when I'm walking into a boardroom, I don't know any of these folks. They may have that bias, they may not. But in any case, I know how I conduct myself physically, in interpersonal personal relations, and mentally. And I just stay true to that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Very good, very good. Another question here. In your opinion, what are the most important qualities that a leader should have, and why?
There's a lot of qualities, and first of all, there's going to be a lot of books out there about leadership. I will pick a few, right? I would say, for me, you have to have passion for people, right? You have to have passion for learning, and you have to be humble, and you have to understand you don't have all the answers. These things are very important. I'm going to come back to the people aspect of it. Leadership and management is a people job. In fact, it's a people's job first, okay? Because you have a group of people you're responsible for. I'm not going to go do the job of my 50 team members. Even if I had the skills, I wouldn't have the time, right?
Right.
So
correct.
you have to lean on those people. You have to rely on those people to bring results. And how you develop them, how you groom them, how you grow them, how you build the team should be your first priority. We see a lot of leaders go and say they take less time, they put less time on the people, more time on the business side of the house. Why? Because that's what we're comfortable with as humans. We want to look at numbers. We want to talk about the things that we can quantify, right? But personal relations are very hard. That's the hard part of the job.
Yeah.
How do you motivate folks? How do you bring people from a low level to a high level? How do you feed people so they become your top performers, right? Mentally, financially, motivational wise. If you can have that passion for people, that passion for growing people, and I tell a lot of other leaders, how does your tree look like? Me as a leader, I look at my tree, the people that have come through my teams over the years, that have been promoted, that have gotten successful, that themselves have become leaders. I had just a gentleman that texted me last night. There's a conference I was supposed to be at. He's a vice president of a different company. And he took the time into my phone to thank me for growing and developing him. When you do these things, you don't think about them at the time. You just do them because that's the right thing. But over the years, you start looking, this person is a VP here. This person is a director. This person is a manager. This person got promoted. Because I have that focus on people, I feel I'm bettering people that are coming through, that are crossing my path, right?
And I love what you said, having passion for people. And I'm sure when you get those texts, you get those phone calls, you're so proud of, what you have planted, the seed that you have planted in your team members or whoever you were mentoring during that time.
I am, but most importantly, the seeding continues. Yeah. Because if I can have that kind of influence and impact on people, I trust they will have the same impact. We're building a better society. Does that make any sense?
Absolutely.
Like when you go to Starbucks, hey, you buy me coffee, I buy you coffee. It's the same concept. A lot of people in this world have been through very horrible teams. They've had really, really bad leadership experiences. If we can counterbalance that.
I know I have.
See?
I have.
And if we can counterbalance that, that's good. Look, and I was just talking to another gentleman. I was saying, look, as a leader, your job is to grow people, like I said earlier. But people need that. Sometimes they don't realize they need that. Sometimes you don't realize you need to do that, but you need to be aware that's the number one job. But there's going to come a point you're going to know, if I have 50 people, of these 50, 40 are great, 10, they're not going to change. They just want to take advantage of the system or whatever the case is. As a leader, you'll have that compass. And you also have to have the leadership and the courage to make a different decision for those 10 people. That may be a difficult decision, but it needs to be made. And making decisions on time when they need to happen is a very important skill. A lot of people, a lot of leaders delay decisions. Oh, I'm gonna let this person go next month, or I'm gonna coach this person next month. You have to take care of things as they happen, so that you can keep a clean operation. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, I totally agree with that. So speaking of decision making, can you share a story about a time when you had to make a tough decision and how you navigated through the process?
I make tough decisions on a weekly basis, actually. It's part of the job, and it becomes very natural. You know, I think you and I were talking on the phone a few weeks ago. I was telling you, know your gut, train your gut, right? Leaders, as you work over the years, you gain experience. And there's two things. You can gain experience by yourself being a leader, but you surround yourself with like-minded leaders or folks that you can learn from. And as you exchanging with them, you get better over time, and you start making better decisions. And that's the part that I call training your gut. Not only do you read books, you better yourself. You put yourself in situations around people that are also strong leaders, always have a mentor, or maybe two. They don't have to be in your company. I prefer they be outside the company, because they would have a fresh and biased perspective. Okay? But in making decisions, there are two types of decisions. There's a lot of types of decisions. The two ones that I come across are just-in-time decisions. You have to make them. You have to make them now. Okay? And some decisions you can see it on. For me, I don't rush, but I don't wait long either. There's a window there.
Yeah.
You have to understand how long before I make this decision. But the reason why I wait on a decision is because I want to weigh the pros and cons, and I do that through gathering more information, right? Every time, if you're a second line manager or above, when a problem is presented to you, it always has three faces. You have to assume that, always. What you told or what you see, there may be a different story, there may be a different perspective. You may have to gain perspective from another employee, from a customer, from your data team, from your partners, from your business partner. All these people, you have access to them. You just ask questions and come with an open mind. Don't assume that the first version is the right version. And then once you have the information, the decision is going to become apparent to you. But in some situations, you make a decision because you need to make it based on the information you have. But you also have to be humble enough to know, I may be wrong. And when I'm wrong, I need to own up to it and make a different decision when I have more information. So that, to me, that takes the stress out of it.
Yeah.
A lot of leaders are afraid to make decisions because they are too afraid to fail, right? They're too afraid of what people are going to think of me and all that. And you're absolutely right. You can't live in fear. You got to make the right decision when it needs to be made. And you have to understand mistakes are going to happen. You're going to fall. You're going to fall. And you know, people say if you haven't made a mistake or you haven't fallen, you haven't tried hard enough, right? You even see in these TikTok videos, these young guys and ladies that do like a stunt. They try it 20 times or 50 times, but at one time that takes is what it takes, right? So, and you see this with athletes. Athletes actually spend more time preparing, right? Making mistakes, on the practice field. But even when they play the game, they still make mistakes. But you can't be afraid of making that mistake, because if you do, right, you'll never play the game.
Right.
So, I agree with that.
And I think that's why you are a leader. You ought to make tough decisions.
Yeah.
You know, tough decisions are made for leaders.
Yeah.
So, and, can be fearful of what people think about you. Because if you think about what people think about you, you're not going to do the right thing.
That's right.
You're not going to make the right decision.
And another thing, I'm glad you said that, the right thing. See, like, there's a lot of stuff to talk about. The right thing is very important for me. What is the right thing in this given situation?
Yeah.
Right? What is the right thing for the business, for for the people, for stakeholders, for customers. What's the right thing, right? As long as I know in my heart I haven't made a decision that is hurting other people intentionally or anything like that, I can sleep at peace. Right? But you gotta think about the right thing. Sometimes you have to do the right thing for people. Sometimes it's not a popular decision,
Right.
but it is the right thing. You
Absolutely.
have to do the right thing. So,
regardless of what,
yeah,
what's gonna happen,
yeah.
that's the right decision.
Yeah.
I want to go back to what you said early on, like having the passion for the people. Some of the qualities of a great leader, having passion for people and passion to learn.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I really love that. So, what are some of your lessons learned that you have learned throughout your career?
There's a lot of them. I'm sure. I guess the biggest one that I've learned is probably that I'm far from being perfect.
Mm.
And my team's success is my success.
Mm.
So I spend a lot of time bettering my team. It's not only on the people side, it's also on the business side. But bettering somebody is just like raising a child.
Mm.
You can't be their friends all the time. You're going to have fun with them. You're going to go have ice cream. You're going to go to Disneyland. But equally, when they need to be punished or they need to have consequences to repercussions, you need to step up. You need to be the person to do that. Not another manager, not your manager. You need to be the person to do that. Think of it as you love your child, you love your team, but at the same time, they need your guidance. And that your team wants you to be a leader. Very much like I have 3 dogs. Mm-hmm. So I use a lot of analogies, as you can see. Believe it or not, if you're a dog owner, your dog needs you to be the master. They don't need you to be their friends.
Absolutely.
Your employees need you to be the leader. And that means, yes, you grow them, but that also means you hold them accountable. Right?
Absolutely.
So
I love that. I love that, holding someone accountable, not because you love them and you want them to do well.
That's exactly
You
right.
want them to exceed. That's really good. What advice would you give someone who is just starting in a leadership role, and what qualities do you think are essential for success?
So I would say this: being a leader, you have to think of it think of yourself as a franchisee, right? You own a Chick-fil-A,
Right.
okay? You own a Chick-fil-A, you own a McDonald's. Your paycheck depends on. And a lot of times I hear leaders say, "Yeah, we weren't successful because I have this bad employee or didn't do this," but it's your job. It's your job to. The business or the organization is trusting you with this portion of the business. It is yours. You make decisions based on that. So if you think of yourself as a franchisee, I'm a franchise owner, it's going to change your perspective. I don't just work here and I have a manager title. No, I'm a franchise owner and this is my franchise that I'm running. Okay? So if you have that mindset, it's going to be very important. If you're getting started, I would say the first thing I would do is understand your gaps. Do a SWOT analysis, strength, weaknesses, opportunity, threats.
Yeah.
Do that on yourself as a person. And be honest. In some cases, if you're humble and comfortable with yourself, you can have another leader do it for you, or another friend, or somebody that you know. And once that helps you understand your gaps, the things that you need to work on. And what I would do is I would start reading books and listening to podcasts that address those gaps. That's your personal development piece. And then the second piece of it is surround yourself with other leaders. That's probably one of the best advice. Have a mentor, have somebody that you can call that could be in a different organization that has dealt with managerial situations, and talk to them on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis, just to touch base and get as much information as you can on a specific situation, right? I look at my business and you build here's another thing I tell people: build your WIP, work in progress.
Work in progress.
So, have your buckets. First bucket is your people. We just talked about that.
Yeah.
Second bucket is the business, right? And these are my buckets. You can have different buckets, okay? And the third business is going to be your customers, the people that you serve or the organizations that you serve. And fourth bucket is going to be operations, the things that support your business, the data analysts, the operations teams, logistics, all of that, because those are part of your success. As a leader, you can't just if you're looking at one bucket, you're missing out on the others. So you have to have good balance. So once you understand that, you learn the different buckets, but you also interact with them. So quickly as a leader, the reason why you're a leader and a manager is because you have that bird's eye view that an individual contributor is not going to have. If I'm in operations, I'm only in operations. But if I'm a leader, I see operations, I see business, I see customers, I see all the buckets. So when I'm making my decision, it's going to be a different decision. It's not going to be based on me being in operations. It's going to be based on how that decision affects the other buckets.
Yeah, the overall.
And I can only do that if I understand and work with those different buckets. Does that make sense?
Oh my God, that is a really good analogy. Wow, powerful, powerful. So I know you're very busy, right?
Yeah.
You have a family, you're married. Then you have all these projects, you mentor kids and things like that. Where do you find the time to balance everything? Because you have a lot of responsibilities as a senior leader in your company. How do you find time to manage all that?
I don't have enough
successfully.
I don't have enough of it. My wife is back there; she can tell you all about it. Believe me, I don't have enough of it. But it's about understanding that. For me, this is not for everybody. For me, it intertwines sometimes, right? And there's gonna be times when it's gonna be. But think of it as a marathon, or maybe you're walking. Sometimes you're gonna walk. Sometimes you're gonna run. Sometimes you're gonna sprint. It just depends. In each of those different aspects, on your career and your personal and your extracurricular, right? Sometimes you're gonna mingle with each other. There's gonna be you're gonna have to make some decisions and choices in this life, right? Because you're not gonna get to all of it. At least I don't get to all of it. If somebody has a formula, I'd love to learn. But my time with my spouse is the most important, right? And there's gonna be times we don't always have time, but we say every week on a specific day and time, this is our time. We don't have no friends, no phones, no anything. It's just the two of us, right? So we can continue to have that touch. But these are choices you make. If something business related comes at that time, it's gonna have to wait, right? This is why I don't have my phone.
I love that.
And in some situations, if you're in a critical situation, which in my role sometimes it's that, I would assign a proxy. Somebody on my team. Again, back to developing your people. I have somebody on my team that I can appoint as my proxy when I'm not there. He can make the decisions that I would make in that situation. So you assign that person for that time to give you that. And then for me, and you also have to have personal time to go to the gym, work out, study. All those things are important. And I just schedule them accordingly, right? I try to touch all those buckets on a weekly basis. And that's how I manage it.
That's awesome. Wow.
It's not perfect. It's not perfect.
But it works for you.
But it works, right? There are weeks when one side takes more, one side takes. There's times when I'm working less that week and I'm spending more time with my spouse. It's perfectly okay. It's all part of the things that you have to manage. Right?
That's awesome.
But it's not easy.
I know it's not easy. It's really hard, to satisfy every bucket, right? Yeah. So, but what works for you works for you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Next is, I want to know, because you really have, I love your leadership style, right? Building people within your team. Have you ever thought about making an impact outside of your organization? And if you have done it before, can you tell us a little bit about it?
Yeah. I thought about it. In fact, over the years, it's become more important than anything else, right? So one of the things I do is I have a lot of these talks with other organizations. There's been a lot of good initiatives. And actually, in fact, I don't know if folks know this, but we have these IND movements in corporate America. And we have women, minorities, and everybody, people from different, but which is beautiful. I love it. Mm-hmm. One thing that a friend of mine, who was a business partner first, became a friend. They noticed that the black man is kind of left behind a little bit in that movement. We fit into buckets, but we don't necessarily get the things that could help nourish our souls and grow our careers, right? So I started to do these talks around conversation with a black man, right? As it relates, not the book, I'm sorry, but as it relates to just having conversation, understanding the things we struggle with, some of the questions you ask me, how to move up, sometimes how to differentiate a situation where maybe I'm not being treated fairly in this organization, what decision I make. Or in some situation, it could just be there are two things I need to do differently to get me to the next level. But these are the conversations we're going to have, right? And we share a lot of experiences. So I've been guest speaker in a lot of sales kickoffs for other organizations. That's the kind of impact and influence I feel I can make. Of course, always talking to youth, right? That's almost a given, right? And the truth of the matter too is I feel I want to give back because at some point somebody took a time out of the day to pull me out of the gutter. Now it's my turn to do the same thing, and I do it with passion. I do it with passion.
I love it. I love it. Giving back is one of the things that I really, it's been in my heart. You know, giving back whichever way, whichever means is available to give back to the community. I love that. Probably my last question right now.
Okay.
So what are some of the most valuable lessons that you have learned throughout your career? I think I've already asked that.
Yep.
Career, and how have they shaped your approach of leadership today?
Okay. You know, a lot of things, I've already mentioned a lot of it in passing, obviously. And one thing I have not mentioned yet, I probably should have earlier, is the concept of influence. Okay. Leadership is not always about giving orders or setting directions. The truth is, you can set a direction, you can set other people will do it without understanding why they're doing it. But if you can influence your people and influence people outside of your organization, that is the greatest leadership gift or thing that you would do, right? We see that with politicians, right? Some of them use the leverage because of the some of them just by mere fact of going on TV saying something, a bunch of people take action one way or the other, positive or negative. That's true influence there, right? And how you build that and how you grow that is very important. It's about how you are with people. It's about your character. It's about your success. It's about the perception that people have of you as a leader. It's very psychological stuff, right? If people perceive you as a true leader, whether it's in your community, in your church, on your team, all of the above, right? If people perceive you as such, if you're starting a movement or you're starting something, people will buy in, right? So the two types of influence. The first influence is you influence other people that are outside of your organization, outside of your team, people that don't have to do what you say. And then the second piece of it is influencing your own people within your organization. The people that are under your responsibilities, but they're doing things not because you told them to do, because they want to do it. I'll give you an example. You have people that, and I've heard this a lot before, people that say, man, I worked on this thing for 2 days straight, not because I had a deadline, just because I didn't want to disappoint my leader. Have you heard that before?
Absolutely.
That's influence.
Absolutely.
Or just because I didn't want my other team member to be the best. That's influence. So I mean, when people get to do things because they want to do this, because they understand what it is to do, because they buy into the vision, that's the influence you want as a leader, right? And for me, this is why I spend a lot of time with people. I want my people to know that I'm genuine about their success. I want them to feel that. I want them to know that. I don't want them to conceptualize that like, you know, mathematically or just as a checkpoint, right? Not just another thing we say at work. I want them to feel that I'm genuine, and I am. I'm interested in their families, their, you know, their progress or whatnot. And then if I bring something on the table, there's an initiative we need to start. I will start with, here's where we're trying to go, and here's why. Sometimes we talk about why it's a good idea or a bad idea. And the second piece of it is going to be, once they understand that, here are the things I think as a leader, based on all the buckets,
Right.
or the whip,
Right.
that I think we should do based on that, right? And here's how we're gonna do it. And you've got to give your people a space where they're comfortable asking questions, disagreeing with you even, and then you can go through what that looks like. And when I talk to my leaders on my team, once we're all on the same page, now I trust them. I trust them, and I use these words carefully. I trust them to carry that over to their team, their respective teams. Okay? And that seems to work.
Yeah.
That seems to work.
That's awesome. Wow. Well, you talked about the projects, right, that you're doing right now.
Mm-hmm.
Have you thought about future projects that you're not able to do now, but you would like to do in the future?
I have a lot. I have a lot of them. I don't know if I'll be able to do all of them. I think most likely I could be part of some of them. Maybe somebody else has already started it. I just haven't crossed paths with them. I have a lot of passions. We can spend 2 days talking about them.
Right.
But I think the biggest one for me, outside of growing in my career and growing other people's careers, is really going to be the state of the black race. And I think it's a very big topic, but I think part of our, I don't want to say part of our problem, but I want to say part of the things that I think would help us is for our children to understand where we came from. Meaning that we were kings once, we were queens once, right? And if you live in a society, if you live in a world where all you hear about your race and your group is all the negative stuff, and how another group has helped you get better through certain program or whatever, you have a different perspective when you're 12 or 13 years old of your own race.
Absolutely.
But if you learn that there were once the Egyptians, and you actually really learn that, and you understand that, and there were once black traders that traded with what's now the Middle East, right, with the Levant, back in those days, before Christopher Columbus and Diego Cao.
Right.
Black folks were businessmen, right? All the old empires. When you study about guys like Mansa Musa, who is still considered one of the wealthiest monarchs that ever lived, wealthiest and most generous that ever lived. If we can capture that, and we can not only educate us, this group, but also our children, and build that in our curriculum, whether it's through the school system or otherwise, because we don't have to only rely on the school system to get better.
Absolutely.
Imagine 2 or 3 generations from now, what kind of perception we're going to have of ourselves that we don't have today. To me, that's probably the biggest thing I would say. There are other things, but it's one that's important to me.
Very powerful. Last question now.
Yes.
Any thoughts of, because we know where we came from. Yeah. And we know the realities of what's going on back home.
Yeah.
Have you had any thoughts of maybe giving back to the Congo?
It's been on my mind, but in all fairness, it's been difficult.
Yeah.
Because I don't know that I have an easy vehicle to do that effectively. And when I say effectively, I mean for that to actually touch the people that we'd like to touch. There are things we can do. We can do certain projects. A lot of people doing projects. I certainly can be part of it. I haven't done it, but I certainly can. But I feel what I've decided to do, in fact, decades ago, was I want to be able to influence and change the people directly around me, if I can, the ones that I can touch, right? I live in the U.S. There's still a lot of things that need help here. I can reach those people. When I lived in Houston, I did a lot of that. I can reach those people. To me, that's still an impact. Right? It doesn't matter which geographic location it is, but I feel I have more influence, more impact, more tangible outcomes when I do it that way.
Yeah.
Could I go to the Congo and do the same thing? Absolutely. If I can go for 1 week and do that, I can go for 2 weeks and do that. But is it going to be perpetuated? I don't know, right? But if I find an opportunity, it's something that I would love to do.
Wow. So powerful. Powerful. And I want to say thank you so much for your time, for your willingness to come and do this. I really appreciate it. And wish you all the best. This is the end of our podcast.
Thank you. You did great. Thank you. Thanks.